Hello and welcome to the channel. It's me, Kristofer Brooks. I hope everyone's keeping well and enjoyed their time off and not got too drunk and not eaten too much, like me. Right, I've got an article to share with you now. I've created the voiceover for you. It's not the entire article, it's just a segment of it because it's quite long and it's by the People's Voice. I shall leave the link to the article in the video description and you can check it out there. It's regarding King Charles, not my king, and his plans or his coercion with WEF minister, shall we say, and about the dismantling of sovereignty and all in the guise of the climate change. He actually uses the word global warming, which is quite funny because I thought they'd done away with that when they realised that it's not actually warming up at all. But there you go, that's by the by. Have a look, let me know what you think, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye for now.
King Charles has openly declared that the elite must launch a vast, military-style campaign to combat climate change, while calling for nothing less than a complete rewiring of the global economy. He has even suggested that traditional farming practices and the livelihoods of countless farmers should be sacrificed in the name of sustainability. But it doesn't stop there. Charles has a deeply troubling history of associating with questionable figures, including his well-documented relationships with Jimmy Savile and Lord Mountbatten, both of whom were later exposed as predatory pedophiles of the worst kind. And yet, Charles's supporters continue to bend over backwards to defend the indefensible. Now, the king has gone even further. He's declared the end of sovereignty as we know it, calling for the formation of a global government under the auspices of the World Economic Forum. At precisely 2:46 a.m. on December 25th, an extraordinary message appeared on the official royal family website. This was no ordinary Christmas message. In this now deleted statement, published hours before his official Christmas speech, King Charles III issued a stunning proclamation, a call for what he described as the necessary dismantling of sovereignty and the urgent creation of a global government. As we gather with loved ones this Christmas, let us remember that our shared humanity transcends borders and ideologies, His Majesty stated. It is only by embracing a global framework, a true partnership of nations, as envisioned by the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, that we can address the profound challenges before us. The time has come to face an undeniable truth. The concept of absolute sovereignty, as we have long understood it, must evolve. Indeed, it must be dismantled for the good of humankind. Unified global governance is not merely an ideal, it is a necessity if we are to safeguard the future of our planet and our people. Within hours, the message was wiped from the site without explanation, leaving only fragments behind. Screenshots captured by quick-thinking internet users who have since shared them far and wide. What was this about? Why would Charles advocate for something so controversial? And why was the press release so swiftly buried? Hours later, when Charles arrived at the Fitzrovia Chapel in London to deliver his Christmas speech, the world was presented with a watered-down version of his call for a one-world government and globalist techno-communism. Quoting from the Gospels, to promote the World Economic Forum's dystopian agenda may be disingenuous, but those deleted screenshots tell a very different story. Did King Charles lose his nerve? Did he back away from a full-throated call for global government at the last minute? Or is there something more behind this sudden about-face? The statement called for the necessary dismantling of sovereignty and urged the formation of a global government to combat what the king described as systemic threats to humanity. These remarks, disturbingly aligned with the World Economic Forum's Great Reset agenda, raise serious concerns about the future of national independence and individual freedoms. But should we be surprised? Charles has previously called for the elite to adopt a war footing and unleash a vast military-style campaign to coerce humanity into submitting to their agenda. As Charles endorses military campaigns to crush individual liberty and enforce the will of the global elite, his denunciation of sovereignty is especially chilling. Sovereignty, the right of nations to govern themselves, is a cornerstone of Western civilization. For a monarch who represents national identity and heritage, to call for its erosion is both ironic and alarming. It challenges the very principles upon which modern nations are built. Does this signal the monarchy aligning with globalist elites, prioritizing centralized control over the will of individual nations? According to Charles, the time for action has come. It's time for military-style campaigns, for sweeping measures that silence opposition. It's time to crush dissent and end the pretense of democracy in the West. It's time to abandon the values of freedom and accountability in favor of centralized control. No wonder Charles was the man to introduce the Great Reset to humanity, the WEF agenda that calls for a complete overhaul of economies and societies in line with the chilling goals of the globalist elite. Is the deleted Christmas message brazenly calling for a one-world government a glimpse into a future shaped by the elite? And if so, why is it being hidden from the public? Stay with us as we connect the dots and expose why Charles III, the King of England, is working overtime to destroy his own country and serve the agenda of the global elite. Here's a hint. He's got more than a few skeletons in his closet. Make no mistake, the global elite are rallying their forces, preparing to launch a major anti-democratic push to seize total power and silence the voice of the people. Major international globalists have begun singing from the same hymn sheet, with globalist bulldog Pope Francis joining King Charles this Christmas in demanding the urgent formation of a global government. In the United States, blatant efforts to undermine the Constitution are happening in plain sight, with treachery and sedition becoming synonymous with the actions of the Democratic Party. Mainstream outlet The Hill is calling for an insurrection, demanding that Congress misuse the 14th Amendment to block the duly elected president-elect from taking office in January. Echoing King Charles's call for a military-style campaign, Democrat Representative Jamie Raskin explains the deep state are prepared to create civil war conditions to destroy the voice of the people. What do these globalist sellouts and internationalist radicals have in common? According to insiders, they're all compromised, and their crimes are so heinous they will do whatever it takes, including burn down the whole world, to keep that compromat buried, as Representative Tony Burchett warns. The halls of Congress are crawling with compromised politicians, just as the palaces of Britain are rotten to the core, filled with reprobates who wield their power and influence to undermine and destroy the very institutions they claim to represent. Andrew has borne the brunt of public outrage over his links to Jeffrey Epstein, and Charles has his own reckoning on the horizon. The man who was best friends with notorious pederast Jimmy Savile likes to present himself as the steadfast leader of the British people, the proud bearer of a royal legacy that has ruled the British Isles for centuries. But in reality, he's nothing more than a globalist sellout, an occultist, and a loyal servant to the elite. When they say jump, Charles doesn't hesitate. He asks, how high?
Case. We have no alternative, because otherwise, unless we take the action necessary and we build again in a greener and more sustainable and more inclusive way, then we will end up having more and more pandemics and more disasters from ever accelerating global warming and climate change. So this is the one moment, as you've all been saying, when we have to make as much progress as we can.